I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling. But out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome back to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Bethany.
Hello.
How are
back.
you? You're back.
I'm good.
That's good. What's our topic today?
We are talking about therapist dress code. I love this topic.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it and we're like, we need to make this into an episode. And I think there's so much out there now, like even just on TikTok and Instagram, we're seeing like therapist outfits.
Yes.
And we're seeing
OOTD.
Yeah. Or like now there's that like little like trend where like you're doing the little steps and each week you have like a new outfit.
Yes,
and so there is a lot of that's happening. And I think a lot of conversation about dressing comfortably in a session when you're with a client. So yes, our topic today is on dress code. I guess, what is your experience with therapist dress code?
So when I was in school, I feel like maybe I didn't have an overly strong opinion about it, but it wasn't until I started a placement, and my placement was business casual, where I started to feel like dress code really matters.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean dress code not being strict. I feel like I have the perspective, and I bring this to my therapy a lot too, of I'm a real person. I'm a person that gets dressed in the morning, and I want my clients to remember that although I have gone to school for this, that I am first and foremost a human being that can talk about life's mistakes and experiences and awkward moments and vulnerabilities without being a source of judgment or as if I know how to do it better. Right? Like, therapists are not experts on life. We have a skill set in schooling and in attunement and listening, and at our core are still people.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I don't want what I wear, like my outfit, to communicate a power difference even more than that already exists, right? Like, there is a power dynamic between a therapist and a client. I noticed it more working with teen clients. Like, I don't want to look like a lawyer. I don't want to look like even a teacher, because they are used to a source of authority in their life. And knowing too that with sources of authority, sometimes we can't always be our most authentic self. And that is the opposite of what I want. I want you to feel comfortable in talking to me and telling me things that maybe you have a hard time speaking about, so that I can say like, wow, like that is impactful and something that we all experience in different ways, and just like really creating a sense of normalcy and humanness in therapy is so important. And I think looking like a lawyer, like wearing a blouse or a tie or a jacket, I think has the potential to come across as kind of contributing to that power difference and making it a little bit harder to feel approachable.
I think that's the biggest thing, is being approachable. And I think we mentioned this before we started recording, that I feel like in the social work program at school, and this isn't just my thought, I want to say, like, between like other social workers, we have felt that way. And at the same time, this is my view and opinion of it, but I feel like there was a lot of like undertone conversations around needing to show up as a blank slate. So, you know, not having an expression and being neutral and, you know, dressing a certain way. Like, there's always like this joke about cardigans, like social workers and their cardigans.
We love a cardigan.
We love a good cardigan. It's cozy. But again, it's just about, you know, wanting to show up this certain way. And I think that was really, like, again, was it fully communicated in that way in our courses? Like, you need to dress this way and you need to be this way? No. But I think it was like kind of not spoken directly, but it was there that we needed to show up a certain way in sessions. And I think that came with what we're wearing and dressing professionally, and also being very neutral with our clients.
I think it is a fine line. Like, I think that does come from a good space of we want a session to feel about the client.
Yeah.
And I never want a client to feel like and you actually said this, so I'm going to steal it, othering them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, kind of creating this space of like the person that needs help and the person that has answers, because that is not what therapy is.
Yeah.
Even going back to our last podcast episode we did together, talking about bringing people to therapy, like this is an individual experience that's allowed to be about you. And so there's part of that where it's like, it's allowed to be about you, in which case it's not about the therapist. And within that, like, I think sometimes that therapeutic alliance, feeling comfortable with your therapist, comes from like, do they dress in a way that makes you feel comfortable? We sit in really cozy, nice offices with squishy pillows and soft things. I would like to feel comfortable in that space too, because this is my workplace and it's where I'm at for full days at a time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that comfort is huge in terms of what we wear. And I think being tidy.
Well, yes, like still wearing, like being appropriate in what we're wearing, but it's still comfortable and individual to us. And I think that that's where a lot of our personality can come out. Like, okay, I went to a Catholic school. We had full uniforms, and I honestly didn't mind the uniform bit because I was able to show my personality in other ways through like my hair color and my earrings and like little pins I'd put on my kilt and like all of these other ways. But in a therapy session, like, I think I want to be able to show off my personality as well, so that I'm presenting myself to my clients, so that when they meet with me, whether it's like a first session or it's a consultation, they can see who I am.
Yes.
My how to dress. I'm a mom. I'm busy. I love jeans. I love leggings. Leggings and like a baggy sweater. Super cozy. But I think it's also, I agree with you 100%. I think it's like the othering. I don't want to dress in a way that is creating distance between me and the client in terms of relatability. I don't want to dress in a full, I don't know, like dressy pants, blazer, and button up shirt and be appearing in a certain way when my client may have just, you know, came right after class and they're in pajama bottoms and a sweater. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it can create a lot of distance, right? If they're like, oh, wow, Ivonne really dressed up today. I feel this way. Like, it can bring up a lot of those insecurities in session. And that's supposed to be a place that feels safe and comfortable. Yeah.
And I think those spaces exist already. You know, we see a lot of students.
Yes.
They're going through co-op interviews constantly.
Yeah.
They are sitting in a space where they have to put forward their best self, and that comes across as their most professional self. That is maybe not the self that you want to bring to therapy, because are you being authentic and speaking about the things that are really hard when you're trying to present yourself in the best way, right? So I think it creates that neutrality of you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Like, I even right now sit cross-legged in my sessions.
Yeah, get
like,
cozy in sessions is what I say to
silly
clients.
Socks. I, you know, even when I was wearing business casual at my placement, would actively put in fun earrings because I was working with teens and I wanted them to know, like, I'm cool. I'm fine. Like, I'm not this adult that has everything put together. I am a human being too. I was a teen once too. Not even that long ago. Like, it's, you know, creating that space where like my age, my likes, my creativity shows up with me. And I feel like it would be a disservice to my client if I put in the effort to mask that. Because if I'm asking vulnerability and authenticity from you, I feel like a part of me has to take that step as well.
For sure. And I think everything that you just said speaks to being approachable and being able to create comfort for that client. And I've had so many sessions where like me and my client might be wearing the same pants and we just, we connect over it, right? Like, are they so comfortable? Like, I love that store. Or, you know, I've had clients be like, oh my God, I love your sweater. Where'd you get it? And it can create like this connection in the beginning of a session before you go into like what can sometimes be heavier conversations.
Exactly.
But it just, I feel like it's just an extra sense of safety that we're trying to create in the therapy room. And I think too, like, same with facial expressions. Like, I'm very expressive. I can't really.
So am I.
Can't really hide my face. And like, some of my clients will call me out and be like, "Oh no."
It's interesting that was a part of your schooling, though. Yeah. Because as far as I recall, it wasn't a part of mine. Yeah. Like we're talked about in terms of like making it about the client, not making it about yourself, watching with self-disclosure. Yeah. But with that, like, I've always felt like who I am, I mean, especially like all of our assignments in school were like, what do you bring to therapy? What do you as a human being bring to therapy? And it was very humanistic in that way of like, we show up as a human being, we show up as ourselves. What does that look like first? And then how are you integrating that into therapy in an appropriate way? So I feel lucky in that way that I've never felt like, oh, I really have to kind of block who I am. But I think too, like when I was starting, even on a placement, there was part of me that's like, I want to look like I know what I'm doing, that I do have my shit together, that I am a professional, because that for me came from like major imposter syndrome. Yeah. Of like, especially when people are seeing you and they know that you're a student. Right. Like, you already know that I'm learning these things, so I'm already worried that I come across as not knowing what I'm doing. Whereas I think the more comfortable I've gotten in the field, the more comfortable I've gotten in my clothes, in what I wear to therapy, because I can rely on the fact that I do know what I'm doing. Yeah. And that what I bring as an individual is very important to my work. And I think we're lucky that that's allowed to be a part of our work in many ways. Yeah. I think it's also really important for us to recognize that our clients are obviously coming in for certain support, and depending on what their history is, how we dress can be a trigger, like you said, right? Like if we're dressing like professors, or if we're dressing up like lawyers, or you know, financial people, like whatever that's very, very dressed up and like a business formal, it can be really intimidating for clients if they have had a negative experience with somebody who looks or dresses that way. And I think that's why it's so important to have a free consultation or just adjust that, because then you're able to actually hear who that person is. I know even for me, and from what I've heard in my other jobs that I've had, has been like, I'm looking for a person within this age who is like this. Right. And it's sometimes if they're matched with somebody who doesn't apply to that, they're like, well, I can't be with an older woman as a therapist because they may trigger my negative relationship I have with my mom. And so I associate my mom to this person. So I want somebody that's younger or who looks this way. And it can be really beneficial for our clients to be able to, again, see what they think would be the best fit, with us showing up authentically, appropriately, but authentically with like what we're comfortable with and how we dress. No, 100%. And that's not to say that lawyers dress poorly. They dress great. Everyone dresses really great. That has its place, right? Like, and it's just not what I feel comes to ours. And I think there's a lot of different views of how to approach therapy, even just the difference between like our schooling and noticing that. Like, these are all coming from different modalities and lenses of therapy, and so I think they all make sense in their own right, but I like the idea of being really exploratory with it. And you know, when we talk about human-centered therapy, it's about creating that rapport with the client, because we are people too. So that's just kind of the perspective that I like to bring to it, in terms of like, I'm a person before I'm a therapist, in a way. Yeah, we're human first. I mean, we could probably have a conversation about this forever, because as you're saying this, I'm like thinking of so many different avenues. We do get dressed every day, so like it's very present. Yeah, it is. But I think like even when it comes to perspective, like how... Even I think for me, like as a therapist, I'm like, oh no, I'm wearing this. How is that going to be perceived? I think about that too. Yeah. Right? Like even as you were mentioning, like imposter syndrome showing up and how you would dress when you first started out, like we're human first, like you said. So sometimes we also feel that in the morning, we're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to wear. And it's like, well, you know, what is the client going to think if I'm dressed this way? What is it going to be this? Like, we're trying to create comfort, but at the same time, because we're human, we're also worried about judgment or, you know, all of those things. So like, again, this conversation can go on forever, but 100%. I think I think the message is just comfort, but I am really curious to see a client's perspective on the therapist's dress code. So I don't know how we're going to get that, but maybe I'll have to put it in like a question box or something. Yeah, for sure. I would love to know what people think too, because yeah, I've only really experienced the one side of it. Well, when I do think of my own therapist, she dresses like I do. Like, like a crew neck and jeans.
Same, actually.
Which is great.
The first couple therapists that I had were older and they dressed like more
casual
professional business. Yeah. And I didn't really feel a good connection. And my most recent therapist dresses like me. Yeah. Like casual, cozy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, from our experience, it has made a difference.
Yeah. And I think maybe too, though, like I probably sought that out to a certain extent, right? Like, I like feeling like I'm working with someone who shows up as a person, whereas there are going to be people out there that are like, I want someone that shows up as a professional. So it would be really interesting to see how people feel about it generally.
And I do think it's important for us to say that we want to show up as human, but this is what is comfortable for us. For someone else, like dressing up a little bit more may be what's comfortable for them and how they show up as humans, and that's fine. I think like we just want to, what we're noting is the pressure to dress a certain way from your employer, right? Yeah. So like the dress code, we don't have a dress code here, just
thank God.
Wear appropriate clothing. But yeah, so if somebody wants to dress up because that's what feels good for them, then, that's amazing for them and they're able to show up authentically themselves. Yeah. All right. That. Well, we could blab on about this more and more, but
I feel like that was good.
I feel like that was good. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again for this little mini episode, and we hope you have a good day.
Yes. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.